Yo, what's up out there, everybody? Thanks for tuning into your soul mapping astro weather report for both this special month of solar and lunar eclipses and July 2019. I'm Thomas, and the astro weather report is where I synthesize aspects of astrology, the I Ching, human design, gene keys, and a little bit of Akashic intuitive wisdom to give you a better idea of some of the energies that will be at play from the genetic all the way on up to the cosmic
It
levels.
is the only consistent truth that there is, folks, is our fault.
And definitely very grateful for all of you that are tuning in. This is a big month for all of us. You know, I'm actually doing this report here on the first, stepping into July. Mars comes into Leo on the 56.1, and we're starting to rewrite all of these stories that are no longer serving us, are no longer serving humanity. And this isn't just happening as in like a literal rewriting of our own stories internally, as in becoming different people, but this actually goes on all the way down to the genetic level. You know, our DNA is a script, it is a language, and the language of this DNA are these archetypes that I talk about. And there's a lot of collective rewriting going on right now, especially with the Saturn and Pluto conjunct South Node in Capricorn. We've all been feeling this for many months and going through these major restructurizations in our lives and lots of mutations and so much happening in the world. And we're getting to this point here of this sort of step forward, you know, this I feel like July, in a lot of senses, will be this last major sort of shift around in a lot of ways to prepare stepping into this new story in August, where there's going to be a bunch of just amazing, beneficial, transitionary, um, or I guess I should say, stabilizing energies in a lot of different ways. Of course, we'll still have a lot of retrogrades going on, still be things shifting around, but August, Leos, you're going to have a great season. And I'm really appreciative of this because I'm a Leo and it's been going through it really hard. July is going to be great too, but it's just going to get better here on out for here into the year until we get into late into December and then some or October actually, and we have some other major shifts that are going on, and I'm going to be talking about that a bit in the report. We're going to be getting into big themes and challenges and all sorts of different things that we have going on here in the month of July, and this is just going to be so powerful. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the charts. All right, so we're going to start talking about July 2nd here, and wow, what a big day. This is the solar eclipse, and for those of you that are tuning in, I just want to, if you had a chance to watch the daily, I got a bit into this, and if you didn't, I'm going to tune everybody in right now. But in these ancient times, you know, these solar eclipses, especially solar eclipses, were times to really pause and revere our place in the cosmos and all of these forces that are going on, and really take that time to take a step back and sit there and listen to the messages that are coming in from the universe, tapping within our inner voice to listen to what's going on in our bodies, in our inner world. And this is definitely no exception for this eclipse because there's so many retrograde energies and a lot of deep and powerful mystical things going on in these charts, especially today's very significant, interesting, synchro-mystic stuff that I'm going to tap everybody into. So I'd like to encourage everybody who's tapping into this, if you're watching it on July 2nd, go ahead and, just take a moment with me to really extend some gratitude and reverence for all of this stuff that we experience in our lives, whether or not our mind comes in and interprets it and says that it likes it or it doesn't like it, or, this sort of aversion or desire and all these different energies, if we can really just take that second to pause and, maybe even take a moment after this video to just really pause and sit with yourself and be aware that, analyze some of these messages, really feel them deep within your body, and really internalize them and see how this compares to what's going on in your inner world and the universe around you, because this is a really powerful time that we're in, and this solar eclipse is definitely one for the books. And so as you can see, for starters, we have the sun is over here on the 39.2 and the earth on the 38.2 across the way there. And this is all about being drawn out in one way or another. The point twos have this way of calling us into things or calling us out to get into these different situations, or uh, really, you know, playing into that energy of like hoping for something better, sometimes calling us out to things that we may not feel prepared for, but actually we are on a deeper level, just sort of natural dance that we have going on with the situation or the people or the cosmos, really. And the 39 in particular, this is a really interesting energy to have this solar eclipse on, because on the other side of the 39 we have the 55. And this channel in general, but particularly the 55, are extremely important to this upcoming mutation, or this mutation that's already going on, but that's really going to shift over in 2027. My partner, Danny, she recently did one of the most extensive articles I've seen on this 2027 shift. You'll be able to check that out soon. Also, in our upcoming 17-week course, we'll be diving into a lot of these systems and energies. This will be a deep dive immersion into a lot of these codes and how you can really take them into your life and learn them and embody them in a way where you can start to navigate your life using these different powerful esoteric systems. But going back to 2027, this is a whole initiation that humanity is going into, leaving behind these periods of planning and development and logic and moving into a new place of spirit consciousness. These we're shifting from where humanity will be the dominant species on the planet to where there's a new species that's sort of starting to emerge in many of us, but it will not fully emerge until 2027, when we see these new, more collective consciousness beings start to come online slowly but surely. And the fact that this solar eclipse is on this opposing energy in this channel of the 3955, which is all about provoking that spirit consciousness, is very massive and very synchronistic, and there are no chances to this. And a lot of what this is about is really calling up to the plate and calling up to the table and calling out those of us that are playing a particularly major part in this shift in 2027, because there is going to be so many massive shifts in our society and consciousness going on with this transition from humanity to this other more evolved species, that there's a lot of preparation that still needs to take place. There's a lot of informing that needs to go on. A lot of systems and structures need to be set in place in order for this transition to be more smooth. It's kind of like this group of humanity that will step up is kind of like the doula for this new consciousness, this new sort of collective consciousness that's birthing here on the planet. You could call it Christ consciousness if you want, but it's definitely something that's more in tune with collective beings. And these new beings that will be here will organize themselves into groups of 3 to 5 that will come on, and they will organize together and come in. When they come together, there'll be a new consciousness that forms out of them, that's much more tapped into these alternative levels of consciousness that we're all just now really starting to experience on a level where we can kind of see through these veils. There will be no veil for those beings at all. And spirituality will be much different. These beings will live in this state, in a permanent state. There will be no dichotomy anymore. And this is something very powerful. And this particular solar eclipse that will kind of usher in the energy of 2020 is extremely important. So, you know, this energy, the way that this might manifest is calling us out of our comfort zones to confront different struggles, or confront obstacles in our life. And this is the reason that this energy happens is because it's asking and calling us to get out of that victim mind state, right? This energy can be very dynamic and powerful, allowing us allowing for us to channel spirit into our different actions and projects, right? The 55 on the other side is all about abundance, and this abundance of spirit that can flow when we truly embody our highest self, or our most authentic self. And this energy is calling us into these higher octaves of our being to really embody. Sometimes when we get into our minds, these obstacles can provoke certain sorts of aggression. And really, what this is a poking of the overarching womb that we're a part of, or the people that are a facet of this intelligence that's going on in the collective. And it's a poke to get us to step back into that center, to really step into that place that's really kind of like untouchable or unmovable, sort of the witness consciousness. And that's what's really going on with the overarching energy of this solar eclipse. On the other side, we have the 38, which is all about struggle, but it's struggle with a purpose. Because on the shadow side, of course, this struggle where we can kind of get into fights very easily, and these fights and aggressions and different sorts of energy, what happens is because this energy is looking for its particular direction and purpose, and if it doesn't have it, that's when these different sorts of fights and aggressive energies can really happen. Because when we step into our purpose and we know on a deep level that this is our purpose, we transcend that area of mind where we know the path we're on, and we just surrender to the moment. And we can look at fighters in, warriors in different cultures, and they get into that flow state. They get into this point where they sort of check out, and their ability to dance with the fight or the moment really transcends to another level. And that's what really this is all about, is because they know their purpose and they're tapped in so deeply. But this isn't on a mental level, this is on a deep embodiment level. And that's what the 55 is all about, is spirit really being able to flow through our bodies in a way where we are a complete embodiment of our highest self. And that can really happen when we open our hearts and leave this sort of mental place of blame, shame, or guilt. And it's not that it will necessarily disappear in our minds altogether, but we won't let it take over us, because we've gone into that place of balance between the masculine and feminine internally. And there are a lot of like heralds to this in the rest of the chart here. Show you here. So we have Mercury starting to conjunct Juno, which is all about this sort of, Juno is this powerful transformative feminine goddess that's all about marriage. And it's about marriage in multiple senses, right? Like marriage as in marital contracts that are going on, husband and wife. But this is shifting and transforming in a major way with all of this energy in Capricorn over here. Pluto and Saturn conjunct South Node. We're at the end of this major cycle, 84 years where we've shifted out of these sort of old stories with relationships that aren't serving us anymore. And the reason this is going on is because this is mirroring an internal shift that we have going on, where we are no longer playing into these mental structures of what we are supposed to be like, or what roles that we're supposed to play, because we're getting into an embodied state where we can follow our authentic self no matter what the sort of pieces of paper say, or what the traditions may say. And we're rewriting those traditions in a lot of ways as well, where we're just kind of surrendering into the spiritual flow of, you know, changing way relationships and businesses and all sorts of interactions are structured. But this is also an alchemical marriage. Juno also has to do with an alchemical marriage going on with Mercury there. Mercury is the alchemist of the zodiac. It is the hermeticist. And with Mercury starting to conjunct this and then squaring over to Uranus here, Uranus is on the 27, which is all about selflessness or selfishness, depending on the dichotomy, shadow state, gift state. But this is really about dropping the self of the mind, dropping the self of like what we think we are supposed to be, how we think things are supposed to look. And this is squaring over. So, at this point in this week, we're coming into the beginning of this Mercury retrograde later on. We're in this shadow period, in this square, as I'll get into later on the chart, is it's going to kind of be like rubbing on this area, this square, right, back and forth over this whole month of July, and this whole Mercury retrograde is kind of like rubbing over this spot, uh, asking for us to really pay attention to this. And I feel like what this is doing, squares are always something. It's challenging because it's something actually coming into the reality. It's actually something getting a foundation built, right? And Uranus there, this is asking for an ascension of what we think ourself is, sudden shifts and changes of that idea of self. Now, up here in this conjunction, we have Mercury on the 31, which is all about the elected leader. It's about the elected leader being able to use their voice to have influence over things, right? And this is a consciousness that speaks for the collective. Okay, because on the other side of the 31, we have the 7, which is more like the alpha leader, or the one that kind of like takes control when it needs to in these situations where it just, they're put in that situation, they just step up because it's in their genetics to take that position, right? But the 31 is the collective leader, because this is the one that's democratically elected, or elected just because people see that they're tapped into that collective intelligence, and they elect them through their support because they have the ability to influence with their voice. Now, I feel like a lot of what this is about is coming to this place where we can lead ourselves internally, where we can drop the mind in the ego structures and really come in more into this selfless service of our higher self, of our authentic being, of the collective consciousness that's really trying to birth here. And this is what we'll start to kind of see dynamically sort of interplay and rewrite and shift as we go through this Mercury retrograde that we get into later on in the month. Now, we also have this energy here with Vesta, right? Vesta um, is over here on the 9, and this is part of this square too. But we're going to be seeing, as Mercury and Juno, they're going to be approaching this 9 area in Leo, and this is going to be really all about internalizing our energy a lot. Vesta is really about that, like taking our sexual force and channeling it inward in a sort of like in a kundalini type fashion, or like working with these inner alchemical arts where we can take our energy. And especially over here in Taurus, this is really asking for us to take this energy and level up our value, right? And how do we do that? Well, this is over here on the 9, and this is really about focusing and taking things one step at a time, and realizing that every single action that we take in order in order for us to really step into these profound levels of like where we can really channel our true self and be that authentic leader, we have to realize that every action that we take contains the same seed. It's like that snowball effect, right? Where we have to begin something the way that we want to end it. And we have to realize that even the smallest actions that we take are part of a much grander plan that's going on. And also realizing that this allows us to get the mind out of the way, right? And I'm going so deep into this particular chart because this is the solar eclipse. So this is flavoring a lot of stuff for many months to come, perhaps even longer. Now, the 9 is also about realizing that, we may have these grand visions in mind. And I mean, I'm talking about grand concepts here, talking about 2027, collective consciousness coming online. And our mind comes in and we see ourselves maybe like sweeping a floor or doing something seemingly meaningless to us, right? But what the 9 realizes, and this is where it steps into its highest aspect of invincibility, because the 9 realizes that even these small, tiny actions, there's a there's a fractal going on where there's really only one eternal moment. So if we carry this same energy into everything that we're doing, this energy will build and ripple out until there's so much weight and energy behind us that literally we have this pinpoint on our consciousness that nothing will stand in its way, because every action contains the seed of our highest self channeled through us in that moment. And with Vesta there, this is asking for us to point that energy internally to move through these just smallest aspects of ourself that maybe don't feel ready to lead ourself, or to, all this energy in Leo too. This is about externalizing our creativity. Like, with this Cancer, all this energy that we have in Cancer is really saying, for us to build this foundation of this identity within, and then we can channel it into our creative projects. And Vesta is asking for us to internalize this leader, so that after the Mercury retrograde, as we get into later this year, we will be able to come with that point of invincibility into everything that we're doing. This Mercury retrograde will kind of provide us with those, and this solar eclipse will provide us with those provocations to confront these obstacles in a way where even those obstacles, those most challenging of things, we can see, okay, this moment contains the seed, and let me just, treat it's like that Zen saying is like, after enlightenment, you keep sweeping, before enlightenment, sweep, carry water, chop wood. This is the same type of thing. So in those challenging moments, in those moments where we're being intensely provoked, we can keep that moment, that place of stillness, and know our purpose within, so we can continue to be those light warriors and have that honor within that. you know the 38 is all about, there's some moments when we come into these places where we actually, the honorable thing, the true warrior will actually lay down and surrender. This is like, you see there's so much stuff going on, especially on social media all the time, where somebody says, some troll comes on a post and is like, hey, says this thing, and some people get provoked and decide to kind of go back and forth. And this is more about those certain situations where, and you recognize that it's not going anywhere, and you can just surrender and ignore it, block them, whatever it is. Just remove yourself from such situation, because it's not really going anywhere. This is that honorable energy of 38. So we also have this sextile going on. This is part of realizing that this is all very part of like a higher spiritual calling that we have going on. Neptune is over here on a very mystical code, the 22.2, and it's sextiling over to Saturn, which is now on the 54.3 over here. And the 54, this is the seed, the energy of ascension. Now, in this particular case, it's about ascension on a physical level. This is actually like a physical alchemy that's going on in the body, kind of restructuring everything in a sort of like energy redistribution, right? Where the shadow aspect of this energy is greed, right? Where we, kind of hold on to money, and not realizing that we're part of a collective consciousness, and realizing that energy just needs to flow and be distributed between any and all people. And as we like remove that governor of the mind, that government of the mind, then the energy starts to flow more freely in our body. This is like, yogic practices of Kundalini, where these sorts of toxins sort of leave our body, and then the energy can move more freely. We move and stretch and allow energy to move and distribute more within this collective organism that is our body. And this same sort of thing is happening on the collective, in the collective consciousness of the earth, and in the physical environments of the earth. We're starting to see these old structures crumble. We have cryptocurrencies coming in, all sorts of new structures to support a lot of great new projects here. Sorry about that. In Neptune on the 22, this is all, the highest essence of this energy is about grace. And what is grace really about? Grace is about telling ourselves on an internal level the truth of who we are, which is that point of awareness for the highest of the high, right? And allowing the cosmos to play a music through us. Now, the 22.2, the shadow, is style, really masking the essential nature. So if we look at this on the level of Neptune being retrograde right now, where are we like allowing sort of a mask to mask who we truly are, so that our true music can't come through? And with this sextile going on, this is actually allowing a lot of like higher level dreams in the collective consciousness to ground into being creatively, through making space within, allowing that energy to be redistributed, to dissolve some of those masks within as well. And let's see here. We also have Jupiter, of course, that's squaring Neptune as well. And now Jupiter is on the 5.6 now. It's just recently moved on to the 5. And this is all about really being called to yield to this kind of like greater flow of cosmic rhythm or timing going on. This is about realizing that, especially in our society today, we get on this pattern of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the specific months, which are all these aren't natural cycles. None of this is all just some sort of channeling of somebody kind of laid down this system, and it's not natural time. These codes that we're talking about, these rhythms of the cosmos, are what natural time is. And a lot of times things don't come in when we think they should come in. They just come in when they're supposed to come in. And we have to allow these sort of cycles and shifts to take over and things to reorganize so that this leader in this collective consciousness in this dream can manifest in the way that it's intended to. Because it's just like planting crops, right? That needs to be done at a certain time of year. You don't just get a little bit low on food in the winter and go, oh, well, I want to plant now. And it's like, that's not how it works. It's like, we get to these points and it's like, well, we have to wait for the conditions to be correct for us to be able to plant. And sometimes we just need to surrender, no matter how much our mind comes in and thinks and goes into this mode of being impatient. And this is a really powerful energy, especially right now, because this is helping us internally too, because both these energies are retrograde and allowing us to go within and reorganize and restructure our consciousness to these cosmic rhythms and cycles and changes. Now, let's see. Oh, yes, I wanted to get into, let me see if I can find this chart here. Okay, so this is an extremely important date we have here that's very relevant to this eclipse. And there are going to be a lot of, relevant dates to this eclipse, but this one particularly so, and I'm going to dive in here and show you why. So, if you look here, um, what's going on is we have the North Node that's now exactly conjunct. This is October 26th of this year, 2019. The North Node of the Moon is exactly conjunct this place. Um, sorry, I'm over here in Capricorn. So this is the South Node, which is important too. We'll get that to a second. But the North Node of the Moon is exactly conjunct here in Cancer, the place that this solar eclipse is going on. And then if you see over here in Libra squaring the North Node of the Moon, we have the Moon. And of course, there's this conjunction going on and a lot of other aspects that we have going on that are extremely relevant here. But this is going to be, you might want to write this down in maybe your date books or something, but there's going to be a major connection to these two dates and these shifts and cycles that are going on. And the moon is squaring the north node. So the north node's obviously on the 39.2, which is the same as the July 2nd that y'all are tuning in. And the moon will be on the 48.2 in Libra and also conjunct Mars. Now, what's really interesting is July 3rd, the day after, tomorrow, is the moon is conjunct Mars as well. So it's very all synchronistic and very, very aligned in showing us a lot of things that are going on here. And with this moon square its node, this is very significant too, because the north node shows us the direction that we're all moving in, and then it's also with the moon square its own node after the moon played a part in this solar eclipse. This is all very connected, right? And so the moon will be on the 48.2 in Libra, and this is really all about being able to kind of tap into a certain sort of resourcefulness within ourselves. Now, if we can look at this, in relationship to what I talked about, with the 39, right? The because this is a square, so this is going to be challenging, something challenging that comes in, and so sometimes these squares can bring out the shadows of these energies, and the 48, the shadow of this energy has to do with an inadequacy, right? So this is all about our lymphatic system and our immune system. And so the 48 in its shadow energy really doesn't feel prepared for anything because it's always kind of like on this special, sort of very intense guard where it's surveying. The immune system is feeling out into the environment, looking for any sorts of danger, right? Or looking for any sort of thing that's going to harm the body. And that could be in the body too, right? These maybe like toxins or different sorts of diseases or viruses or things like that, right? But now, the wisdom of this energy, synchronistically, is wisdom because what happens is the 48 is actually always prepared. It's always prepared because it has this ability to instinctively adapt moment to moment to anything that it needs to. And squaring this energy is what this is saying is we could be kind of like called out or provoked to move beyond some sort of place of inadequacy, right? With these with these point twos as well, this is sort of dance that's going on in the environment. This could be something that we are really actually naturally very good at, but maybe we don't believe ourselves to be, or maybe we haven't thought that we are before. And over here in Libra, this could be something going on, a reflection of, once again, a reflection of our value. This could be something to do with a relationship coming in, reflecting that value to us, or really asking, maybe bringing in some sort of like judgment about our inadequacy or something like that. And with this conjunction going on with Mars, this could be some sort of very sort of passionately aggressive energy, really calling us into that higher aspect of ourself or that very dynamic part of our being with, you know, so we have the south node that's over here on the 38.2 now. It's really, this day will really call us into that higher light warrior aspect of ourself and really ask us to really tap back into our purpose and know that we have the ability to adapt and to tap into that wisdom within because the 40 is also about depth, right? And it's about depth because it's explored so much in its resourcefulness, has the ability to go anywhere into the body or the environment intuitively and instinctively and really know its truth and its purpose. In this particular case, really dynamic energy to adapt to anything. And that's what's really being called of us, at this time. And we also have a quintile between Jupiter that's over here still in Sagittarius, and it's making a uh, quintile over to Ceres, which I believe here. Let me see, where is Ceres in this chart? I'm used to using some other chart software. Um, oh yes, it's over here in. So you can barely see it on there, but um, so we also have this Jupiter here that's conjunct Ceres going on in Sagittarius, and it's also making a quintile over to this energy. And what it's really calling us to do is to really be able to tap into that place. This is where we are powerfully driven to really share and gather support for these things that this higher calling that we're stepping into in this reality, right? And on the 26.5, this is close to galactic center over here, and this is very synchronistic as well. It's really calling for us to this powerfully driven action to tap into our wisdom once again, our wisdom to really uh, tap into our practicality when it comes to gaining support and solutions. So whatever it is, this challenge that we're going to meet on this day will, if we can move through it in this way that taps into our resourcefulness, it's really going to allow us to gain more support that we have and really like market that message that's coming out of our heart at this time. The sun is over here on the 28.2, and it's opposed Uranus over here in Taurus on the 27.3. And what this is also, this alignment's just insane, right? Because the south node is on the 38, and we have the sun that's over here on the 28. And these make a complete channel together, which is the channel of struggle. And these, with this point 3 and this point 2, we're really struggling to be more selfless, to really tap into that light warrior, that fighter that we have within. And we can do that very naturally at this time. This is a very, in a way, very helpful energy. Oppositions can be challenging sometimes as well, but with this full channel going on, this is going to give us the ability to push through those obstacles, to really tap into and innovate our identity in this way where we can be able to both nourish ourselves and nourish others, because the 27 is also has a lot to do with our ability to nourish and share resources with the collective or those people that are close to us. Finally, we have Saturn, of course, that's conjunct. It's also going to be on the 38, where the Earth is for this solar eclipse on July 2nd. And what this is really saying is, we're actually starting to bring a real concrete structure to this honorable aspect of ourself that can really kind of push through anything. So in a way, this is actually kind of helpful in one way or another to bring in structure. Now, of course, this is opposed the North Node, so this can be difficult to maybe really feel comfortable and at home with this new structure, the way that things are restructuring at this time. But this is actually going to be something that's very, very helpful for the long term. And once again, this could be asking or calling us into this place to kind of honorably maybe bow out of a situation if it gets a little bit too aggressive, or just looks like it may be something that's not going to actually get resolved or be really helpful for anyone. So then we have July 3rd. So July 3rd, and I'm going to try and move through some of these a little bit quicker, but I wanted to really ground in this energy of the eclipse for everybody. All right, so then we have July 3rd, and I'm going to try and roll through the rest of these charts a little bit quicker. I just really wanted to tap everyone into the power that's in the solar eclipse here. But July 3rd, we have the sun that's going to be moving on to the 39.3, and then we'll have the Earth on the 38.3 across the way. Venus is actually finally going to enter Cancer. It's going to be in conjunct Ceres. So a lot of this could be about, we're starting to kind of like innovate and bump into unexpected ways in this adventure that we can really move this powerful energy into this dynamic, creative way to channel the spirit into something that's going to be really good for us. That's going to help us to sort of ground this comfortable identity and this new comfortable home into our lives in a lot of ways. And with Venus entering Cancer, this is going to be more supportive energy. We're really valuing creating something at this time that's going to give us that place of emotional nurturance, and that place that we can really just share our deeper selves and just really feel comfortable, like really just letting out who we are on so many levels. And we're really going to start to see reflections of people coming around us as well, that can help support and create that structure for us. And this will be in conjunct Ceres, though, over here on the 34 in Sagittarius. And this is interesting because this can mean, on one hand, with Venus on the 15, we could be kind of really getting in touch with these extreme aspects of ourselves, really going from places where we really love people and humanity, and going to places where we're, almost kind of like have some sort of like hatred for people in different ways, or just these very extreme aspects and cycles and timing and things like that when it comes to our own inner value of ourself, and also how we value other people. An in conjunct Ceres on the 34, this could be where it's difficult to tap into that place of our just inner creative power to really just get a lot of work done. We can kind of be going through some kind of shifty times when it comes to that. The moon is going to be conjuncting Mars here on the 56.6. And this is extremely powerful. This is happening in um, this is where we start to really see how this new story is going to be rewritten and start to unfold. This happening on the 56.6, which is all about being able to take our ideas and tell them in these beautiful stories. And I feel with Mars conjunct the moon, we're feeling really passionate and action driven to start to rewrite this story, start moving beyond our old stories, and we're really looking at these stories and these ideas objectively, so that we can then rewrite this script that we have going on that's going to be taking place for the rest of this year. Um, we also have Juno that is trining over to Chiron here in Aries on the 17.3, Juno, of course, still on the 31. And, we could be connecting with interesting, influential people, or uh, connecting with leaders that are sort of helping us to change our opinions about ourselves and where we're going, very supportive of this new identity and where we see ourselves going in the long term. And then this could also be us using our opinions in innovative ways to help others and to influence others, and to really make some great bonds and connections with people. Finally, we have the black moon that's going to be retrograde sextile over to Jupiter here. The black moon, this is really about kind of cutting away things that really aren't serving us anymore in lots of different ways. It's about reworking some wounding that we've had internally, especially there in Aquarius on the 13.5. This is about really being able to give ourselves empathy and coming up with some practical solutions to give ourselves empathy. And what this is about, sextile over here to Jupiter on the 5.6, is we need to have empathy for the rhythms and timings that are developing, and just allowing them to play out however them playing out when it comes to just being able to witness ourselves in this internal shifts and changes that are going on. It's okay to just allow things to kind of play through. So next we're going to move on to July 8th. We're just tapping into these sort of larger major transits that are going on here for the month, and I'll be getting into, of course, the dailies and everything for y'all, and tapping into each specific day. You can check those out on Facebook. I'll be uploading those. Thinking about getting back into YouTube, perhaps Instagram, and maybe some other interesting new connections as well. So now we'll finally have the sun that's moved on to the 53.3. The earth is opposed on the 54.2, and this is really about starting to go on this adventure of progress. The 53 is a very, very important code for the month. You'll be seeing this code come up a lot from a lot of different planets going over the 53. Venus is going to come back to the 53, and the 53 was very important as we had all these different energies, Mars and Mercury and the moon, of course, too, all pass over the 53 over this past Cancer season, and even a little bit before that. And this is really about starting to make a lot of developments and progress out of a sort of immaturity, right? So we're really starting to leave this sort of viewpoint behind where we feel disconnected from the environment, from the collective, from different things. We can start to see that we're being kind of called to grow up in one way or another. And this is, of course, opposed to the Earth on the 54, which is where Saturn is. And this is the 54.2. So, in one way or another, this maturity that's taking place is coming out of this restructuring that's going on in our life, restructuring that's going on in our physical vehicles. And this is about starting to be able to see our place and our role and our status kind of evolve and to grow and to make progress as well. We're kind of moving up in one way or another. We're moving up some sort of ladder in our status, where we're kind of growing up and into that by shifting around our view of both our place in the world, by dissolving these sorts of boundaries and seeing that we're all part of a collective organism. And then it's also about moving out of this kind of like greedy mentality that's been happening also in our structures, in our body, in our relationships, and kind of looking at these interchanges of energy between ourselves and people we're connected to a lot differently. We also have Mars that's going to be over here now on the 31, finally starting to hit this square that's going to be taking place. Of course, I talked about the Mercury retrograde kind of rubbing on this energy. Now Mars is on this energy. We're really feeling like taking action on that place of influence, right? That really starting to channel using our voice in one way or another to have sort of influence over being able to nurture ourselves or the tribe or people around us. Now, this is a square going on, so this could be where we kind of feel there's a lot of difficulty going on to be able to kind of contain. There's so much energy wanting to move forward, but we also feel some wounding around this area where, maybe we're not sure if we're ready to step into these positions or be able to use our voice in these ways. We're kind of maybe working through healing some aspect of our voice, but we're really being called to innovate and step on a new adventure here and to really embody these energies and channel that masculinity in a way that's going to be able to nourish ourselves and those around us by stepping out of these old identities. Mercury has now went retrograde, of course. That happens on July 7th, and late night it's going into July 7th and 8th. And Mercury is retrograde conjunct to Mars, right? So this, once again, this is playing into this energy even more, where we're feeling like alignment between our mind and our communications and our passions, right? We're starting to see some alignment in terms of this story that we can step into and rewrite around our ability to lead ourselves or perhaps even others. We have Venus that's making a sextile over to Uranus. So this is helpful in this energy that there's people and connections and our, our mental structures in a lot of ways, really valuing uh, our ability to be still and sit with ourselves and our ability to nurture ourselves. And maybe there's some connections coming in that are, supporting that vision for us and really allowing us to create this sort of different higher level structure of value in our lives. Saturn, of course, still sextiling over to Neptune, and got into that extensively enough. We haven't, these planets are retrograde and moving very slow, so I'm not going to get into that every single time. We also have Venus. Um, okay, I already went over the Venus sextile that we have going on. So then we're going to get into July 9th, also another powerful day. Oh, went a little bit too far. Let's go backwards here. July 9th. So now we have the sun's on the 53.3. It's moving on to the next one, and it's in exact conjunction with the North Node. And this is, of course, very important because the North Node shows us this direction that many of us are moving in our world. And with the sun there, we can really feel like we're starting to take a lot of action or really see this new direction of progress being made, and this adventure that's going on, because the point three is all was about bumping into interesting things and being called to kind of like innovate in different ways. Of course, we have Saturn that's opposed over here in Capricorn. We also have the moon that's going to be making that conjunction this day with Pallas Athene, and this is happening on the 57.1, and this is also sextiling Jupiter retrograde. So Jupiter's still in the 5.6, and what this is asking for us is to really use our intuition when it comes to different timing that's going on in our lives. Start to tap into that intuitive place where we can kind of feel into where we feel like the timing's about to go with all of this, because there's, shifts that are happening coming on later in the month, and use our intuition when it comes to where this adventure is going to be taking us, this our inner wisdom. Use our intuition when it comes to, the 57, they call it like the gentle wind, right? And it's about being able to listen intuitively into the wind in this way where we can kind of feel what's kind of like coming, right? What's on the horizon. Now with Pallas Athene there, this is Jupiter's consort, right? This is Jupiter's wife. This is a powerful goddess. And uh, so we're really being asked to use that feminine wisdom in an internal way, intellectually, in conjunction with our intuition, and really, tap into the wisdom of our intuition when it comes to timing. Then we are going to get into July 11th. So move forward, July 11th. So now we have the suns move onto the 53.5, and we're going to be starting to see some development of some sort of practical solutions when it comes to making this progress. But we're starting to oppose the Pluto in the midpoint between Pluto and Saturn here up in Cancer. And so we could be starting to feel a lot of projections from other people when it comes to maybe some sort of like immaturity going on with Saturn on the 54.3 and Pluto on the 61.2. We have to kind of find this interesting like balance when it comes to our inner truth and our inspirations, and also our ability to ascend higher, and really this drive that we have to rise up in these sorts of social ladders. We have to use our ability to kind of like dissolve those places of immaturity within, even if people are projecting onto us that we're a little bit immature in maybe the way that we want to restructure our lives or move up, or to um, to make these shifts and bring this new level of comfort and stability in our lives. And we could have a very like rigid ego structure that's being dissolved at this time because of these projections. When people project onto us, a lot of people don't realize this, but it's actually ability to be empowered, right? That's why the point five is always exalted in these systems, because point fives receive projection from everywhere, from the projection field. And that projection field is an energy, an intention that can be harnessed and redirected into different things. It's like calling for us to live up to some sort of energy. And that's why the projection field, that's the dichotomy of this energy, is the point fives of these codes receive this projection as saying, can you step up to the plate and be the solutionary, the savior of this energy? So this is really asking and calling for us to move beyond those projections and channel that energy in a way where we can channel this sort of growth that we're making into a new structure that's going to allow both us and many other people to ascend higher. Now we also have the sun, and this is of course synchronistic, still kind of conjunct the north node here. It's definitely still in the 53, and it's trining over to Neptune in Pisces. And this is really calling for us. This is really where we're starting to see the progress being made on this, spiritual adventure that we're being called upon, and also where we're starting to see this music play out in this growth, right? Some development in this kind of collective song that's going on, asking for us to maybe sacrifice these masks of ego consciousness to something much greater, a greater dream, or vision or song being sung and coming through. We also have Mars that's going to be on the 31.5, squaring over to Uranus. This is, this kind of challenging energy going on the entire month. And this this is another point five, so we're receiving that sort of projection that we can be the leader, or maybe we're projecting onto others that they can lead us and providing us with the nurturing that we need. And this could be challenging, but once again, this is the ability to really harness this energy, especially with Mars there. This is super powerful ability to passionately take action on receiving this channeling, right? This collective projections. We can really channel that into making some powerful shifts and moves. The sun's also going to trine the moon that day. The moon will be on the 47.5. So we're also transmuting a lot of like oppressive, ancient, karmic stuff, or stuff within our bloodlines or within the collective bloodlines in our DNA. We're really transmuting a lot of energies. And by making this progress and growing through these new directions and coming up with a firm foundation, or finding that place within that can kind of be comfortable through anything. And this is supporting a transmutation going on, and we really have the ability to receive this energy at this time, so this could be very good. Now, we also have the moon that's trining over to Neptune too. There's just so much going on, and believe that this makes this a grand water trine that we have going on. And so this is super powerful day that we have going on July 11th. And once again, the moon on the 47.2 trine over to Neptune on the 22.2. And this is, you know, with this energy and water, right? This is incredible. This can be major psychic intuitive energies, this abilities to tap into really high levels of psychic intuition, especially Moon on the 47, Neptune on the 22.2, Neptune still retrograde. You know, we can tap into deep levels of dreaming and collective consciousness to be able to really take things in a new direction for ourselves and humanity in many different ways. It's, you know, this would be a great day to get into different sorts of meditation, perhaps some sorts of ceremonies, or something like this. Finally, we'll have the moon that will be sextiling over to Pluto too. This is just, can you believe this, right? So the Pluto will be on the 61.2. This is really the reality nurturing something in us, the ability to really transcend beyond and transmute a lot of different things that have to do with um, different sorts of occult energies or powerful sorts of you know, maybe really take our sexual energy and really channel it into something very inspiring, right? Some really getting to that place of inner truth within to really bring this new structure and ground it into our reality. We're going to be going to July 16th. Fast forwarding a few days here. Thanks everybody. How's everybody feeling? We don't have chat going on right now, but I hope you're feeling good. I feel really great about this channeling in this month. So now we have the sun that's moved on to the 62.4. It's going to be opposed, where the Earth will be conjunct Pluto over here on the 61. And this is really where we are starting to form a new language. Okay, like the 62 is all about being able to take intellectual concepts and form them into a language, right? Now, this can play out in a lot of different sorts of ways, right? With the Earth over on the 61, we've kind of come into our truth and our inspiration at this point with Pluto over there. And with the Sun, now we're being called to really capitalize on these opportunities to put things into a language. And more than that, right? Because the 62 is about impeccability. And what is impeccability? Well, the impeccability is where we can actually tap into these channels of a language of light that we have within us. And this language of light is these archetypes, right? Where we can, so we're going and we're actually have the opportunity to embody certain levels of truth of this new structure. We're also going to be having a conjunction between the Earth and the Moon that day, and with the moon, this is really nourishing that truth of embodying this, you know, this highest aspect of, or this deepest truth within ourself, really, and really being able to impeccably share that in a very precise way with people. And this is, of course, a partial lunar eclipse as well on July 16th. So this is a really, really big and important day, and definitely playing into these cycles and these eclipses that we have playing out through all throughout this year. So this partial lunar eclipse is happening on the 61.4. So this is very significant, especially with Pluto on this energy. This is a day to take note of, and another day to be very reverent, especially, in the past, solar eclipses have been seen the days to be most reverent of, but we're moving into this new cycle of feminine energy, so lunar eclipses can definitely be just as important, although this is only a partial lunar eclipse. So do keep that in mind, but definitely where we're going to see this kind of like uniting of nurturing of actually grounding something into being this new language of precise impeccability and being able to translate this inner truth and inspiration to those around us. Now, we also have the North Node that's going to be squaring Pallas Athene in Libra. And this is significant because a lot of people skip over these goddesses, but I really like to include them because the goddesses, the asteroids, are points of transformation. They're these transformations that we make very often on an internal level that then ripple down into the more masculine externalized way. And this square is going on. Libra's the Pallas Athena is going to be on the 57.2, and this again kind of tapping back into that intuitive place within us. And this is really calling for our intuition to be able to tap into how to take a vision and really use it in an innovative way to make some growth. And finally, we have Mercury that is going to be on the 56.6 and is going to be trining over to Ceres over in Sag. And earlier we were having the in conjunction going on with this energy, and now we're starting to see this more helpful trine going on with the 56.6, and now we're really starting to really see how this script is going to play out as Mercury's coming back towards where it's going to go direct again, and Mercury's kind of starting to come back and deliver more messages about this new script and how we're going to write it. We have July 17th. July 17th, we're going to be seeing Venus that's over here in Cancer, and it's going to be opposed to Saturn in Capricorn. So this could be an interesting tension that we have going on, really trying to find the balance between, the fact that we are really, really valuing and connecting with people and situations that are allowing us to grow into this higher structure of value in our life, and oppose over to Capricorn. Saturn and Capricorn on the 54.2. So this could be difficult to kind of balance this energy of, working on our body and moving past these areas of greed, and then also providing ourselves with this greater area of comfort and connecting with this new identity and moving in this new direction. So it may be kind of hard to balance these things. We're being asked to come into this balance point with this energy. And then, Venus is conjunct the North Node as well, so it's really allowing us for us to take these old structures and really move them in a new direction. And Venus is going to be trining over to Neptune on the 22.2. So really valuing this new kind of spiritual mission that we're tapping into intuitively and channeling, and this music that's being played through us. We're really connecting with more people that are going to be helpful for that. Perhaps unexpected people all over the place as well. And then we have the moon that's going to be in Aquarius, and it's going to square over to Uranus. Now, this is interesting because with all these other energies, with the square going on the 41.5, this is going to be interesting, right? Because there can be kind of some sort of like anticipation or interesting kind of like the 41 actually allows for any sort of thing to kind of be possible in one way or another. It's actually where all the genetic information is stored. And with this square going on, the moon in Aquarius is really allowing for some sort of solution for a fantasy of our ability to value ourselves and nurture ourselves more, and really really shift and change our environment in major ways if we tap into this. But this could feel sort of difficult when the moon kind of brings us um, maybe a little bit of something that's maybe a bit unrealistic in one way or another. But if we capitalize on the projections going on, because people could be projecting onto us that we're just kind of like lost in a fantasy realm or something, but we can take and we can channel and restructure that energy once again. And then we have the 19th. So Mercury is going to be coming back into Cancer on the 19th, and it's going to be coming into a conjunction with the Sun. And this is where we really, really get this message delivered to us from Hermes, telling us, this is time to write these new chapters. This is what this new story is really going to be all about. This kind of union of the Sun and Hermes. This is like, little messenger delivering up to the gods. This is what the new script is going to be all about. It's time to rewrite it. So July 19th, be mindful of that day. What's this message that's coming into you? And take note of communications that are going on, and really see like how this new story is starting to play out. And on the 56.1, this is all about being able to create and investigate in different ways that story, and being able to take it and really create it in something internally that we can use moving forward. Before we get out of this Mercury retrograde, right? Take this message, and then as we leave this Mercury retrograde and Mercury moves direct, then we can really start to move forward on this new story and this new script that's happening in our life. Finally, we have July 21st. Venus is going to be over here on the 62.2 in Cancer, and it's going to be opposed to Pluto in Capricorn. And so now, as we're moving through this Mercury retrograde, we've developed this new language for this new story, and we're starting to embody it. Now it can kind of be difficult to, maybe we're being called up to embody it in ways where we're really tapping into that place of power within ourselves, or maybe there's, this restructuring is going on, and it could be maybe a little bit difficult to find that balance point between that place of integrity with our language and being very precise, and then also um, being able to channel that place of truth and that inspiration within. We have also the Sun that's going to conjunct Mercury in Cancer, and then it's going to be going back to Venus very shortly. And the Sun is going to be on the 56.3 now, where we're really starting to see some externalization of this new story and these ideas really being innovated in different ways, um, because Mercury is about to go direct. Now, July 23rd, we have the Sun that's going to be entering Leo. And this is going to be great. Leo season this year is going to be off the hook for sure. A lot of things starting to come together once we see Mercury leave retrograde and go direct. We're going to start to see a lot of pieces to the story start to come online. The other planets will follow after this, although in August we have Uranus coming retrograde. And this is interesting to note too, right? Because we've had this interesting square in this Mercury retrograde all this month, and this kind of weird sort of energy where it's like this, almost like a wound kind of being like scraped on a little bit of this uh, challenge to rewrite this script or embody this new story, right? So Mercury is going to come direct, and then Uranus is going to come retrograde. So this internal, like this ascension that's been going on in our external reality of our value structures, then we're going to review that for a little bit as we move forward with this new story. Then we're going to be looking at like, okay, am I really nurturing myself in a way that is that is in alignment with this new story? Are the things around me reflective of this new story, right? We're probably going to be reviewing, are the electronics that we have and the clothes that we have, the actual environment around us, is that going to nurture this new story or not? That's a lot of what this is going to be about. And then we get into July 24th. Go back here. I can't wait to get Astro Gold. I just found out from the Leo King that can get it on Android, so I'm going to be getting that very shortly. July 24th. So now the sun is on the 56.6, the Earth, of course, over here on the 60.6. This is really asking us to go beyond our old limitations, right? The 60 is this sort of pulse energy of mutation. So this is where we're going to start to see some really powerful mutations coming in, both in our physical bodies and these structures. We're going to see this pulse kind of wave come in and really move things around that are going to work into alignment with this new story. And it's asking for us to go beyond our limitations, but also create new ones. Because as soon as we write anything down in the script in our body, or even in a story, those are limitations. Once you write the story, there are things that are unwritten. But we can't just not write the story. This is about dissolving those old limitations and coming into some new ones that are going to be more supportive of these new ideas and these new, more comfortable identities that we have that are grounding into being. We also have Mercury that's conjuncting Venus on the 62.2. This is delivering us the ability to go beyond some of these languages that we have within this, maybe this, kind of ways that we've been looking at the reality within ourselves and what we thought was truth, and we're coming into these connections that's allowing us to go beyond that as well. Mars is going to be conjuncting uh, Mars is going to be conjuncting Juno and trine over to Jupiter. So Mars and Jupiter now on the 7.2. And so this is interesting right before we talking about the 31 and that kind of leader. And so what Mars and Juno now in the 7, this is really calling for us a different aspect of our leadership, right? The leader that this is like the alpha dog or the alpha in a situation that doesn't have to be elected. It can just step into a situation and take action. It doesn't need to have that support. It's just going to step in because it just feels it within its being. I have to step in and take over this situation because, you know, nobody else is stepping up, and that's just its job. And it's trining over to Jupiter on the 5.4. So this is like a unique opportunity of timing where we're being called in to step up as a leader in one way or another. And then the moon will also enter Taurus in conjunct Uranus. This is going to give us some more uh, this may be an interesting gift that comes in that's going to support this, this whole new story and things like that that's coming in. And this also may be connected with this trine that we have going on with Mars and Jupiter. If we can take this opportunity to step up as leader, we may receive some sort of special kind of like nurturing gift that allows us to up our level in value. And then finally, July 28th. I don't know why I want to say June. I'm still kind of stuck in June. But now we have the sun that's moved onto the 31.4, the earth onto the 41.4. So this is kind of really bringing this whole mutation of June kind of full circle, right? Because the 41 is a very mutative code. It has to do with, once again, I said all of the genetic information is in the 41. It allows anything to sort of be possible in different ways or one another. And we've been getting these messages since the beginning of the month now about this sort of way that we can lead ourselves right now with the 31 on this energy. And this is a 0.4, so this is really giving us the opportunity to have that influence that we want. And this, what is the influence that we want? Well, the influence that we need, or to be influenced, because this can also be kind of coming in that way, where we receive these energies or we're the one that is influencing. But this is the ability to like influence others in a way where we can, we're balancing influencing others and also tapping into the this sort of fantasy that's going on that wants to restructure. It's fantasy, right? Because it has to do with like any codes being possible. So we're having to find that balance, right? Because if we're influencing others, we're taking, all these potential codes and everything, and we have to externalize them or ground them into something where we're taking them from this sort of space of immaterial ether, and then actually writing that into the reality. Now, Venus is going to enter Leo and is going to go into the 56.5. So we can see some connections coming in where we have some practical solutions for rewriting that story as well, probably connected to those connections going on with the 31.4, of course. And we have Mars that's going to be conjuncting Juno still, but now we're going to be seeing an in conjunction with Neptune on the 22.2, and then a squaring over to Vesta in Taurus. And I feel like what this is really saying is, you know, as we maybe take this leadership role that's going out Mars in the seven, we may need to kind of step past the place of we may need to drop the mask. We may need to be almost like a little bit ungraceful in one way or another to step into this leadership role, because sometimes in these situations we just have to step in and take action. It may seem ungrateful to others, may seem maybe a little bit unspiritual, or we may have to almost even like lie to ourselves a little bit, and maybe we do have to put on some sort of mask to take this leadership opportunity really quick. Finally, on July 30th, we have Mercury going direct. And this is where we're going to, we've gathered all the intel and information, and we can really have everything that we need to start moving forward on rewriting the script that's going to be playing out a lot for the next 6 months, especially, starting in July 2nd, we're going to be starting to see a lot of the information come in, the solar eclipse, the review in this Mercury retrograde, and then we're going to be stepping forward on writing it the rest of this year. And don't miss out on these opportunities. There's a lot of big things going on, and this is why I'm tapping everybody into these codes. I'm going to be continuing to do this for the rest of the year. Tap into the dailies and be on the lookout for new offerings that we have. 17-week course coming up here that we're offering. Keep on the lookout for exactly when we're starting to we're going to be starting to take signups for that very shortly. Is a 17-week course. Danny is the main one, and Aaron, they put that together, and I'm going to be doing these uh, these channelings, and also getting into kind of like the mechanics of how these transitions and these codes and these things work, and a number of other things. But going to be a very powerful opportunity to really learn and embody these languages in different ways. So hope this has been helpful for you. As always, tap into your innermost authority, see if it feels right for you, and thanks for tuning into the Astro Weather Report.